Hey guys, it's Sharice, nutritionist and author of the One Pot Alkaline Diet Cookbook. And today I want to cook one of the recipes with you again from the cookbook so you can see just how quick and easy the alkaline and plant-based diet can be, especially with this cookbook, because every single recipe, all 100 of them, are made in just one pot using 10 ingredients or less and requiring max 10 minutes of prep. I mean, how great is that? So today I want to make with you the creamy mushroom, quinoa, and Brussels sprouts casserole. Whew, that's a lot to say, but it's one of my favorites. It's on page 89 of the cookbook if you have it, and it is so delicious. So we're gonna make that today, and I'm super excited to do it with you. Now we're gonna break it down a little bit just because it's a little harder to do on camera because there's some cooking throughout on the stove. But again, part of that 10 minutes of prep includes that stove time of cooking. So what we're gonna do today to break this down is we're gonna first create a mise en place, which I wouldn't normally do when I'm cooking these recipes because it uses more dishes, and usually I'm just gonna chop it up and throw it all in the pot. But today we're gonna start by prepping the vegetables first so I can take you over to my stove and show you what we do next. So that's why you're gonna see me using a few more dishes than you'll have to when you're actually cooking the dish, just because, you know, video camera problems. Anyway, so we're gonna start by just chopping up half of a white onion. So if you've seen my videos before, you know I like to leave the core intact because I can cut it up better that way, sorry. So I'm just gonna cut off the other end in order that I can take off the skin. All right, so we've got the skin off, usually a lot easier than that. And I'm just gonna start by cutting part way through, like to the core. And that's why you keep the core there, because it kind of holds it all together. It's a good, safe way to cut. And then I'm just gonna cut it on the side here as well. Just watch your fingers, obviously. Okay. And then I'm gonna chop it up. Onions are actually quite easy once you kind of know the tricks to cutting them like that. Okay, so our onions chopped up. And again, like I said, I don't usually use an extra dish or a bowl when I'm doing this, but today we're going to, just so I can take you over to my stove after this. So that was just 1/2 of an onion. All the recipes in the book serve 4 people, but you can easily double or triple them if you want it to make more. So I made a bit of a mess here today. 1/2 an onion, nice and easy to cut. Then we have 8 mushrooms that we're just gonna thinly slice. And again, I'm gonna put them into another dish, but normally I wouldn't. So we're just gonna slice them up just like that, nice and easy. Again, we're making almost that cream of mushroom idea with them. But instead of using milk, which is acidic in the body, we're gonna actually use coconut milk to make it more alkaline. And I'll show you how we do that in just a second. Just gonna chop them up. If any of these recipes feel like they're gonna be too labor intensive for you because you're not super comfortable with a knife, or you don't like spending time in the kitchen, so you don't wanna be chopping things up, the nice thing is so many of the items that I use in the recipes are things that you can actually purchase pre-sliced. And mushrooms are one of those things that you can get pre-sliced, and then all you have to do is toss them in, and that'll save you a few minutes if you aren't as comfortable in the kitchen, or if you just don't enjoy it. Not everybody likes being in the kitchen. I do. I love it. I don't know why. I guess because I spend so much time in here cooking for kids. But at the same point, I don't have all the time in the world to spend in here, so I do try and make recipes as quick as possible at home, which is why I love using this cookbook. But I'm also comfortable in the kitchen, so I realize not everybody is comfortable in the kitchen or cutting up things like mushrooms, but that's the joy of having other people do it for you, and you can purchase them pre-chopped. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with cutting corners for your own sake and knowing your limits and where you find joy, right? If you're not enjoying being in the kitchen, you're not gonna cook, right? And that's the way that you can make something like the alkaline diet easier, is by finding those ways to cut corners to make it something that's more enjoyable for you. And none of these recipes should take more than 10 minutes. And if you fear it will with some of the chopping, then you buy pre-chopped. So there's 8 mushrooms. After that, the recipe actually calls for 16 Brussels sprouts. And normally what I would have you do is square the bottom. However, my husband bought giant Brussels sprouts, so we're actually gonna just use 8 instead of 16. But normally I'll just show you what I would have you do is you would cut off the end and remove any extra leaves that might be on the outside. And then you just make an X in the bottom like that. I don't know if you can see that very well, but you make just a little X, and that helps the steam and the heat to get inside and actually cook it from the inside out. However, again, because these are so large, I actually might quarter them today. So be willing to work with what you have or what's in season, right? That's fine too. So I'm still gonna cut off the ends, but then I'm just going to quarter them just to make it easier. And again, anytime the leaves fall off, I like to just pull those little ones off, because then they're just gonna make a mess in the dish anyways. I find scoring is faster than having to cut them all like this, but some people would rather cut them. So if you'd rather do that, that's fine too. Just the smaller they are, if you cut them into halves or quarters, they're gonna cook a lot faster and they can become mushy. So that's where you wanna just kind of watch your size. So in the recipe book, I would have assumed we were using smaller ones, which are more normal to find than these gigantuan ones, but that's okay, we will work with it. So again, I'm just pulling off the outside leaves that are falling off. Okay, we've got just a few more to go here, almost done. And then I'm gonna take you over to the stove and show you what we do next. But this is all the chopping that's required in this one. Really easy. If you don't like onions or you can't digest onions very well, you can skip them as well and the dish will still taste amazing. There we go. So that's all that we're gonna do for chopping. Taking out those last leaves on the outside. And we'll put this in our bowl so I can take it over to the stove for you. Again, I wouldn't normally recommend you use these extra dishes, but we're gonna make this easy so I can walk you through what we do next. So stay with me. All right, so we're at the stove now. We've got our food prepped. Now I'm gonna show you what we do next. So first of all, I have preheated my oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit because we are gonna take this dish and put it in the oven. However, to start, we're gonna cook a little bit stovetop. Now, I like to use my Dutch oven for this because it can go stovetop to the oven, but you can also use any other oven-safe dish that you have, or you can transfer if you're okay with it not being one pot. But first of all, I've got not quite a quarter cup, about a quarter cup of oil, but you know me, I just kind of put it in, heating up on medium on the stove. And once I feel like it's kind of getting hot, so I'm just sticking my hand in, I'm not touching, but once I feel like it's hot, that's when I'm gonna start adding in the onion and the mushrooms, as well as some salt and a couple teaspoons of thyme. So I'm just checking it here. Looks like it's getting hot now. So we're gonna start by adding in the onion that we already pre-chopped. Gonna add in the mushrooms. The reason why we're using a good amount of oil in this is because mushrooms really soak up liquid. And so it's important that we give it the liquid to work with. I'm gonna do a couple pinches of salt because that's also gonna help really draw that moisture out of the onions so they cook well. And then those 2 teaspoons of dried thyme. Look at me, I'm measuring. And then we're just gonna cook it stovetop for about 5 minutes to let these onions become translucent and soft, and you'll see that the mushrooms are starting to soak up that liquid and they're gonna brown up and they're also going to soften. So here we go, 5 minutes. Okay, so that was about 3 minutes, and I don't know if you can tell there, but the onions are translucent, the mushrooms have softened, it smells amazing, and there's also no more oil in the bottom. That is all being soaked up by the mushrooms, which is great. I stirred it the entire time because I didn't want the onions to brown. This way, when I add in the coconut milk and after we cook it, those onions are just kind of gonna melt into your mouth and become part of that sauce. So now that this is ready, we're gonna add in 2 cans of coconut milk. It's not quite 4 cups, 3.5-ish. Gonna add that in, and I'm just gonna stir it up here. And then all I wanna do is bring it to a boil before I add in my quinoa. So I'm gonna turn it up to high, and I'm actually gonna put the lid on just to help it happen a little faster. Depends how much time you have. And we're gonna let that come to a boil, which should only take about a minute. Okay, it sounds like it's coming to a boil here. Yes, it is. We've got a nice rolling boil going here. You don't need to be a crazy boil, but just enough that you know it's now heated through. I'm just gonna give it a stir, and now I'm gonna add in 1 cup of quinoa. This is uncooked quinoa. And I'm gonna mix it in. I'm actually gonna turn off the stove now. Make sure this quinoa is all mixed into the liquid so it actually can cook. And then we're gonna pop it in the oven, and we're gonna bake it at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for 20 minutes. And then we still have one more step, so stay with me. All right, let's see what we've got here. So that was 20 minutes that it cooked at 350. Ooh, and it's nice and creamy already. Quinoa's almost cooked. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the Brussels sprouts that we scored, or quartered in this case, and we're gonna mix that in. So it's nice and mixed into the liquid and the cooked quinoa there. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna stick it back in for 10 more minutes so that the Brussels sprouts can soften, and if the quinoa isn't totally cooked, it can finish up. So let's stick that in for 10 more. Now we wait. All right, here we go. Delicious dish here. Oh my goodness. Ready for me to show you? Look at that. Does that not look amazing? Oh, this is one of my favorites by far. Just gonna add a pinch of salt. I like to finish this one with a pinch of salt and pepper, but you can put it in earlier if you prefer. But for some reason, I just kind of like this one to get finished off nicely with that. But the Brussels sprouts look like they're cooked perfectly. The quinoa is totally cooked through. Sorry. And now, all we have to do is dish it up and enjoy. So if you like Brussels sprouts, mushrooms, quinoa, this dish is most definitely for you. Bon appetit. Oh, that's so hot. Hot but good. Hot but good. Still recommend. Woo. All right.